Little background, this is the third annual domestic violence seminar that we're conducting in collaboration with 1 Billion Rising. If you didn't get a chance to get an agenda, there's an agenda right on that sign-in table, and I hope you've all signed in. Before we get started, what I'd like to do is introduce the campus director, and let me just say that without her, this would not be possible. From the time she took over, which was last year, year before, she has been extremely supportive and did everything she could in her power to make this happen. So we're very proud to have her, and we're grateful to have somebody that can support a program like this. So, everybody, this is Dr. Brown, Dr. Phyllis Brown, the campus director, Springfield College, Tampa campus.
Good afternoon and welcome. So again, I want to welcome you to 1 Billion Rising 2017 Springfield College, Tampa Bay, in solidarity with 1 Billion Rising, which is a global movement, a global revolution to say no to domestic violence, to sex trafficking. We are 1 billion and growing strong. And if you know anything about putting millions of people together for a cause, or as they say in my Buddhist practice, many in body, one in mind, that focused energy can change, can make a change. And that's what we're here for. So I'm thankful that you're here. Before I give you some reflections on this day from my perspective, I wanted to start by thanking Dr. Janice Hudson, Carlos Sandy, the Tampa Bay team, Jackie Griffin, the Community Advisory Board, and everyone else who made this event possible. It takes a village to pull off an event like this. So I'm very, very grateful. And this is all volunteer time and service. So I want to say thank you. So let's give a nice round of applause to the people that helped to make this event possible. Yeah, Tampa Bay style, Springfield College, right? We make noise. As you know, Springfield College is in Hillsborough County. But did you also know that Hillsborough County is a hotbed of human trafficking activity? Did you know that Hillsborough County has more strip clubs per capita than any city in the United States? Did you know that? How many people knew that? Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons why an event like this is really important, because we need to know where we are, where we walk, and what it is that we don't see. Because it is here, it is a hotbed of activity. Did you know that Florida is third in the nation for human trafficking activity? Well, at least some of the Springfield College Tampa Bay students know that, because a group did a group project on human trafficking, and I'm very proud to say that they have a display set up here. And I want to thank them for that work, because that's the kind of work we do at Springfield College, is we bring what's real into the classroom, because this is what we have to deal with in our lived experience in our lives. Well, when I learned this statistic, I thought to myself, why is Florida the third largest in the nation for human trafficking? Seemed like a reasonable question to ask, right? So I asked it. And when I went to seek out the answer, I thought, well, this is very interesting. It is third in the nation for all of the reasons that many of us love Florida. It's a tourist destination. I mean, it's the home of the Magic Kingdom, Disneyland, and everything that's fantastical and magical, right? It is also because of our renowned beaches. Ever connect human trafficking, sex trafficking with the renowned beaches? Siesta Key, Lido Beach. I bet you're not thinking about that when you're laying on the sun and jumping into the tub. I didn't, but I do now. It's because of our seaports and our beautiful hotels and our convention centers. So, worldwide, 27 million people, primarily women and girls, but men and boys, are forced into human and sex trafficking. I found it interesting that it's a $32 billion industry. It's more profitable than Apple. When you're more profitable than Apple, we follow the dollars. That's a lot of demand, right? Because economics, supply, demand, okay? And it's second only to the drug industry. Now we know human trafficking and sex trafficking is tied to the drug industry, right? So that's part of how people are forced in and kept in human trafficking and slave trade. These heinous crimes and the sheer number of people affected by human trafficking, for me at times becomes overwhelming. And I have to admit to you, this is the second year I make public confessions. There are times where I just want to put my head in the sand and I don't want to see it, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to know it, I don't want to think about my own experience, I don't want to think about everybody's experience, I just want to live in paradise. But when I do that, I realize that I allow myself to become outraged beyond belief, I become disillusioned, and I actually become stuck. I can't see my way out. And in that way, I'm a victim. And if you're a victim, there's a sense of hopelessness and helplessness. I can't do anything. I'm only one person. But I'm here to say today that I refuse to be powerless. Because powerlessness means that I am helpless. Helpless for myself and helpless for others. And these global atrocities are not going to go away if we put our head in the sand. We know that. We know that education, awareness, and work, and changing in public policies and our laws, all of those things are important in order to change what is happening with human and sex trafficking. And as a Buddhist, I actually believe when I stand in solidarity with men and women globally against human trafficking, we have the power to change the world. And I'm not deluded about that, because I know that there are power in numbers. When I use my energy to take action against human trafficking, I realize that I'm not a victim. I am empowered and I have a sphere of influence, and in this way, I'm not a victim. I'm powerful beyond my own belief, and together with others around the world, we're able to make change. So, when I turn away from having my head in the sand and thinking I can't do anything, the other side of that is taking action and making a dedication to do that, which I have in my life. And as I turn my attention to how I can use my sphere of influence, I realize that I have a personal sphere of influence where I can make impact, and I have a professional one where I can make an impact. And in that way, I can be a change agent. So I feel proud to stand here as the head of this campus and saying that Springfield College is proud, honored, and committed to being part of this movement. And yes, this is an annual event and it will happen every year to keep us aware of the fact that we have work to do. I'm happy to have students and to welcome members and organizations who offer services for people living with domestic violence. Springfield College has a zero tolerance for any kind of violence, sexual, discrimination, any kind of violence. And as the leadership of this campus, I will always stand up and uphold those policies. So, one of the questions I asked myself in preparing for today is how can I use my sphere of influence to affect change, to empower myself? So I wanted to share with you, I've made a commitment in my personal life that I will not be silent in my family or my community about domestic violence, sex trafficking, and my own experience with domestic violence. I will engage in activities like the women's movement and the 1 Billion Rising movement that speaks out against domestic violence in all of its many forms. As a professional and campus director here, I will use my sphere of influence to endorse and support with money, time, and service in the preparation for this day. I will ensure that domestic violence classes are scheduled for our campus because that is part of the important work that we do. I will support and put forth on main campus domestic violence continuing education public events to provide domestic violence training for state meetings, emergency service workers, child care professionals. And actually, this particular program has gained the attention of our Vice President of Academic Affairs, the Dean of the School of Professional and Continuing Studies, and in the next week, Dr. Hudson and I will be meeting with the Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs to talk about this becoming a model for other campuses and also to provide CEUs through Springfield College, Tampa Bay. That's the kind of movement and change that we can make when we act together. So again, we all have a mission, and should you choose to accept your part in this mission to help make the world a better place and to rid the world of domestic violence, I want to leave you with a question, and that question is this: how will you use your sphere of influence to help end domestic violence? We often think in order to make a change, we must make a big change. But change, massive change, starts one person at a time, making a change, standing up, taking a stand. So I ask you today, what will you do? How will you use your sphere of influence? We all have a mission. We all can make a difference. Will you volunteer your time? Will you speak up in your community? Will you speak up in your family? Will you speak up in your places of worship? How will you use your sphere of influence? I hope as you go throughout this event, you will be thinking, how am I going to move this forward once this event is over? What am I going to take personal responsibility? So, the last thing I wanted to say is, if you want to learn more about Tampa, human trafficking in Tampa, I recommend watching a WEDU documentary called Too Close to Home that was produced in 2013. I mention that because it was a very powerful documentary for me to watch, but it also is a testament to what Springfield College students, as alums, are doing in the community to deal with some of the major issues of our time. When the documentary opened up, little did I know, in front of me would be Carl Lavender, who is an alum of Springfield College. So I offer that to you as a resource, but also as a way of saying, Springfield College, Tampa Bay, Springfield College, the country over, our alums, our faculty, our staff, and our students are making a difference, one person at a time. Again, I want to thank you for coming out today. I hope that you will enjoy this program, be moved by this program, make a commitment to do something to change our nation around human trafficking. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Every once in a while, if you're really lucky and standing in the right place, or maybe the wrong place, you have an opportunity to make a difference. I welcome you to our event this afternoon with a clear understanding and deep and profound appreciation that you have decided, without coercion, to be here and to be a part of something bigger and greater than all of us. Never before has this work been as important as it is right now. We welcome you. If you look around you, you may see some empty chairs. Do not be dismayed by those. There are many spaces where bodies may not be, that's held sacred for women who would have liked to be here, women who said they would be here, and women who, in spite of the commitment to be here and be a part of this, simply could not make it. So again, let me welcome you. I'm Dr. Janice Hudson. I am glad you are here, and it is my profound pleasure to say thank you for standing with us in solidarity and with 1 billion rising across the globe, raising voices, stamping feet, and saying, we will not be silenced, We will be seen, we will be heard, and above all, we will be recognized for who we are. Thank you.
Hello again. My name is Carlos Sandy. Again, welcome. I know you've taken your time, and we certainly appreciate it. What I neglected to do initially was give you a quick rundown of the program. You've already heard from Dr. Brown, a little smidgen of Dr. Hudson. We have a representative from the judiciary, the Pinellas County 6th Circuit. And then we have Dr. Hudson, who's going to be doing her interpretation of the 1 Billion Rising mission in cooperation with what we do here. And then I'll come on as men as allies. I have several guests that I have invited who have agreed to share their story as allies to women. I think this is a very important piece of this. We're going to take about a 10-minute, 15-minute break afterwards. Then we're going to come back and Dr. Hudson is going to stand in solidarity again with some local students, and they have some quotes that they're going to read to you. And then finally, we're going to do Break the Chains, Dundu Delay, which is an urban African ballet troupe. And I think you're going to be really surprised and really inspired by what they do. They're using dance as a medium, and you're really going to be surprised, let's put it that way. And I'm sure you're going to be coming out of your seats as well. And then in closing, we're going to have myself and Dr. Hudson, who will be closing it out. Next is our representative from the judicial system, Pinellas Pasco Circuit Judge Jack Hellinger. Judge Hellinger has been a prosecutor, having worked for the State Attorney's Office in Pinellas and Pasco counties for 6 years, from 1976 to 1982. Then he entered private practice, concentrating on criminal and family law matters from 1982 to 2009, when he was appointed to the bench. He is currently the administrative judge for the Family Law Division, including Unified Family Court in the 6th Circuit, and is currently serving on the steering committee on families and children in the court under the auspices of the Florida Supreme Court. We are honored to have not only a distinguished judge, but one whose knowledge of domestic violence and matters and family matters may be unparalleled in the state. Judge Hellinger.
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you all for being here. It's a beautiful day outside, right? But this is more important. I want to talk to you a little bit about the court system from a judicial standpoint, explain a little bit what's going on, both in Pinellas, Pasco County, a little more statewide also, and then I'll be glad to take some questions if anybody has any in a bit. Human trafficking from the court system is really going to be dealt with in the criminal system. It's very, very, very serious. It is taken that way. It is treated that way, as it well should be. Obviously, there has been a lot of emphasis on that more recently. I'm not going to speak too much about that because that's not my direct world that I live in. I sit in the family law division. In the family law division, we do all the protective injunctions, domestic violence injunctions, dating injunctions, sexual injunctions, repeat, and stalking injunctions. And we do the divorces and paternities. So I'm going to talk more about that. I assure everybody here, though, that the court system takes criminal human trafficking tremendously serious. I know firsthand, my wife happens to be a circuit court judge over in Pinellas also. She sits in the criminal division, and just 2 weeks ago, she was in a week-long trafficking trial. And would tell me about just the unbelievable story that was going on. That gentleman, I use the term loosely, was convicted. He has not yet been sentenced, but I feel quite confident he will be dealt with extremely appropriate. But that's the criminal system. I live in the family law system. The family law system, again, also does all of the protective injunctions. In the introduction, if anybody's doing the math, you can figure out a little bit about how old I am. I've been in the legal system for a hair over 40 years now. And I will be very quick to tell you or anybody else, in my opinion, the court systems did not address domestic violence sufficiently, appropriately, or in a serious manner for many, many, many years. I don't think society did it either. There was some, but clearly not enough. And the court system, in my opinion, didn't do it enough either. Many times, domestic battery criminal cases were a royal pain for the system. All too often you had uncooperative victims, and there wasn't a sufficient, in my opinion, understanding of why. And so they were difficult cases because all too often the lack of cooperation. And so a lot of things got handled, in my opinion, in not a terribly serious manner. I have seen what I believe to be an incredible, better development, both in the criminal system, in the family law system, and the protective injunctive system. We're still a work in progress. We're trying to do better. I think we're doing much better. I hope we continue to do better. I know our state attorney in Pinellas County has special prosecutors that specialize in domestic violence cases. They are trained, they much better understand the dynamics and how to deal with them. When I was a prosecutor for 6.5 years, many years ago, there was no such training. I will tell you, in law school, there's no psychological training. There wasn't when I went to law school many years ago, and I try to keep in touch. There's virtually none now. So lawyers, by their very nature, are not trained for these kind of things very well. When you take the bench, you don't get any more IQ points. You don't get any more knowledge the first day you take the bench. I'm in my 9th year of being a judge. I have seen in that period of time what I consider to be great developments in this area. I, like many a new judge, got assigned to the family law division. Why is that? Because a lot of judges don't want to be in the family law division, so they put the new ones there, you do your time and you get out. For all too many, never to go back again. It's understandable. It's not good, but it's understandable. I have seen a change in that. It was a good assignment for me, but it was an assignment nobody else wanted. It was the highest family law caseload in Pinellas County, so nobody wanted it, so I was the new person on the block, so I got it. It ended up being a great assignment for me because I had a family and a criminal background, and that really helped. And now I'm, again, 9 years later, and I could transfer out at this point anytime I want because of enough seniority, and I don't want to transfer out. We have another judge in the same building as me, Peter Ramsberger, who's now in his 12th year in the family law division. So we're starting to see this where judges become dedicated, they become knowledgeable, they become understanding, and they want to stay. It's an area of the law, in my opinion, from the judiciary, more than any other, that we can reach out and touch and help. And that's supposed to be in a lawyer's DNA, that we help. Not every lawyer, but I think many a lawyer, it's like that. But so many other areas, being a judge, it's tremendously important. We're ensuring that there is due process, fundamental fairness, that the laws are being applied. And that's incredibly important. And we do that in the family law division, but we are also able to reach out and touch and help, because the family law division, per the Florida Supreme Court, says don't just do justice. We are directed to do therapeutic justice. The family law division is the only division. There's 4 basic divisions in courts: criminal, civil, probate, family. And any kind of case that comes into the court system fits into one of those 4 divisions. The only division that is designated to do this kind, therapeutic justice, is the family law division. So as we do this, we're starting to get more judges who are dedicated. We are starting to have much, much better training for judges in the psychological areas, in the dynamics of domestic violence, in how do we spot it, how do we recognize it. And while we don't get frustrated, well, we get frustrated at times, but we have a better understanding because we're educated that it takes the average person who is a victim of an abusive relationship to make 6 to 7 serious efforts to leave that relationship before they finally do. We were never taught that. Now we're taught that. Now we understand that. So now we better deal with just not being frustrated when a victim doesn't show up, and we have a much better understanding why they don't. And then when we come back, they come back again, we have a much better understanding, and we are not looking negative toward them for not showing up in the past, because we have a better understanding of probably why they didn't show up before. There's some other, what I believe to be wonderful developments in the family law arena, and by definition, domestic violence injunctions are family law cases. All the 5 kind of protective injunctions fall within of those 4 divisions, they fall within the family law division. So we have much, much, much better education for us. We have much better dedication where more and more judges want to stay in the family law division instead of seeing how quick they can get out and hopefully never come back. We have this concept of one family, one judge. I don't know if y'all have heard about that. But it is attempting to have one judge hear every case that a family has. If they have a domestic violence injunction, and then there is a divorce case or a paternity case, then that is to come back before the same judge. If there's a dependency case and a domestic violence injunction case, a dependency case and the teenage kid has gotten in trouble and there is a delinquency case, that comes before the same judge. So that that judge can totally understand the family dynamics. because we know now why that kid is getting in trouble, right? It's not a bad kid. It's a kid that's been exposed to bad stuff and doesn't have the role models. And the courts, it's been a work in progress, but I firmly believe that they are doing so much better understanding all of these dynamics. I'm what's called the Family Law Administrative Judge for the 6th Circuit, the Pinellas and Pasco County. So I kind of oversee all this. And I am very, very adamant that our family law judges, the judges who are hearing the family cases, are also hearing the protective injunction cases, so that we are attuned to domestic violence, so that we know it, we study it. I see it every day. I don't see it every day, but I touch a case every day that has it. We do all the injunctions every day. A part of my job is to get the temporary injunctions and review them periodically. My assignment for the day will be to hear the return hearings all day long. And if a family has a divorce, paternity, dependency case, whatever it might be, and a protective injunction cases, we call those now related family cases. And the judge knows about that. And they know about the other cases. We have our cases we're paperless. It's on my computer screen. And my cases for the day are right up there on my computer screen. And if I have a family before me on a divorce case and there's a protective injunction against the husband on behalf of the wife, then that's up on my computer screen and I can pop into that and see exactly what's going on. Huge development, huge development. Helps us tremendously. It helps us in the power to control the anger and all too often the violence, to have an understanding and then attempt to do something about it. We have also learned tremendously about adverse childhood experiences. Has anybody here ever heard of that phrase? ACEs, adverse child. I gotta see somebody nodding. Anybody else? If you all are here, you probably don't need a lot of motivation. But if you need any more motivation, or you want to motivate anybody else, have them go read about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs as they are called. And they are exactly what it sounds like they would be. The bad stuff that happens to kids and the effect upon the kids. The psychological community has done a phenomenal job. We've all known bad stuff, violence is bad for kids, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. We've known that forever. But the psychological studies, both from an emotional standpoint and a physiological standpoint, I'm talking about now brain development, has been phenomenally increased over the last 10 years. I heard my first presentation about 3 years ago on ACEs, and it blew me away. We've all again known this stuff is bad for kids, but ACEs puts it all together and what it does for kids, and how bad it is for kids, and how it actually affects their brain development. So it's not just emotional, and I certainly don't want to minimize the emotional damage. But the point is, it's physiological too. And so now there is this incredible movement through the court system to to learn more and more about ACEs. I'm very proud of something we did in the Sixth Circuit this past September. We shut down the family law division for the day. There was no family law cases other than shelter and first appearance hearings. Every judge in the circuit, every case manager in the circuit, 98 family law lawyers from Pinellas County came, 40 psychological people came that work in counseling and work with the court system. We had people from the school system, we had people from law enforcement. We did this at University of South Florida, the St. Pete campus, where they have some wonderful experts in the area of ACEs. And we all got together to collaborate for a day. About 150 people there. To learn about ACEs and the effect upon children. So we can spot it, we can stop it, we can try to prevent it from reoccurring in the future, and then we can get the kids to help. And I have seen since September the light go on with a whole bunch of people. So we're a work in progress too. But we're working, we know how important it is. We try very, very, very hard. But I will be also very quick to say, the court system can't fix society's problems. We've heard too much politics about that. Lock them up, put them away, solve it. No, the person gets out of jail. And whether they go back to that relationship or the next relationship, if they don't learn to stop it, it's going to happen again. And if a victim that is not given the tools to break the victim, the cycle of victimization, then that person, statistically, highly, highly likely to be a woman, is going to go back to that form of a relationship. We try. It's very frustrating for us when we're sitting doing return hearings on domestic violence injunctions, and we'll have 2, 3, 4, 6 petitioners just not show up. I'm not going to hold them in contempt of court for not showing up. They're a victim. I'm not going to penalize them. But I wish more could be done. As a judge, we can't go out and grab that person and bring them in. We need the help of the community to do that. We need the victim advocates to do that. We need the victim advocates to convince them that there is a lot of resources in the community that they can finally stand up to the abuse and never put up with it for a day again. When I was first a judge, it was pretty standard when there is a final judgment of injunction and a petitioner wants it dropped, meaning they're back in the honeymoon phase, right? Breaking the injunction to say, I love you and it'll be wonderful and I will never do it again, and come on, we'll be together as a family and won't this be wonderful, and I'll be a good boy for a little while, right? So then you get the petition by the petitioner, usually the woman, to dismiss it. Well, we used to just routinely grant those. Their case, boom. We've changed our philosophy. We set those for hearing. We require the people to come in. And I want to hear what they're saying. I want to hear what the reason is. I want to hear if that abuser is physically or psychologically abusing that person to try to get them to drop it then. And we will very often take a break in that hearing and have that petitioner go talk to a victim advocate to make sure what's going on. We need help. We need victim advocates. We need resources. Never, ever, ever should a person go back to a victim situation for economic reasons, and I mean never. Does it happen though? Absolutely. I think it's happening less than it used to. But if we are going to have a society that all of us in this world think we should have, then somebody should never, ever, ever go back to a victim relationship for financial reasons. But the court system can't solve that issue. We can recognize it, we can try to address it, but it needs all of us. It needs a community to give us the tools so that we can help the victims through the court system. So we're making progress. We got a lot more progress to make. But we've come a long way. I'm glad to be a part of it. I hear about it every day. Had an interesting situation a couple of months ago. My wife and I were visiting a son that lives in Tucson, Arizona. We're stopped at a traffic light, bunch of cars around, son's driving. All of a sudden he jams the car in park. We're stopped at the red light. Gets out of the car and starts running across the road. What in the world's going on? I look over. I see where he's running to. There was a guy beating up a woman in the parking lot right across the street. I got out of the car, running over. He's bigger, stronger, and much younger than me. I'm scared somebody's got a gun. Thank God nobody did. And the gutless wonder guy who's beating up the girlfriend, of course, immediately backs down to my son. He's about 6'3", 190, built real well. And so chicken guy runs off. Another woman got out of her car, called 911. I was very proud of my son. Very proud of my son. I was very thankful the guy didn't have a gun. And then it hit me. We hear about domestic violence every day. I hear about it every day I go to work. But I saw it. I was fortunate I didn't grow up in a household that had it. My son certainly didn't grow up in a household where domestic violence is there. But to see it was phenomenally meaningful to me. And it, in a way, reinvigorated me. It's out there, it's hidden, it's seldom in public, but it happens, and it's horrific. The power, the control, the domination. And from children's standpoint that live in that toxic environment, they deserve better. So we're trying to get there, but we need your help. We can't do it by ourselves. We need your help. Can I answer questions for anybody? Yes? Yeah, I'm sorry. Is there another mic? I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Can you give a brief explanation?
I heard a brief explanation and I couldn't hear the rest. Yes, therapeutic justice, yes. One of my all-time favorite phrases. When a family, for any kind, there's 23 kinds of family law cases. Usually if they're in the court system, they're in a level of crisis, right? They're getting divorced, there's a war between the parents, there's a dependency where there's been abuse, neglect, or abandonment. can be a lot of different things. We are told as judges in family law to not just adjudicate. We are told to try to help. We are told to try to recognize those families' issues and problems and try to help them get better. We are directed, when possible, to try to have a family leave the court system in better shape than when they entered it. I will quickly say many times we have to recite the serenity prayer when we try and are not successful, so we keep our sanity, okay? But we have created many tools within the family law division to try to help families, to get counseling, to get anger management, to have mediation, to have what's called parent coordinators, psychological type people that meet with parents who have an inability to communicate and co-parent and be civil to each other, to teach them how to do that. So what we're trying to do is make things better as they go through. And those of us that stay in it, in large part, we like therapeutic justice rather than just adjudicating. Now there's some cases we just adjudicate. Tee it up, hear both sides, issue an order of judgment. But our first goal is to try to help them solve their own problems and get better. Okay? Yes, sir.
Hi, sir. You mentioned that the victim should never go back to a household because of economic problems. So what's out there available for them in a situation like that?
Yeah. Every community out here has all kinds of resources. They have safe houses. There are government programs on a temporary basis to give them housing, to give them food, to give them clothing, to give them counseling, to give them the guts, the backbone to never stand up to this again. Is there enough? Absolutely not, in my opinion. But it's out there. I didn't know it was there. I had to reach out and find it, but it is there. There is wonderful things done by, I know, Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, Pasco County. There is a lot there. People need, they need that help. And because it does take a village, and a lot of times it's other family members coming in and helping, or friends, or churches, whatever it takes. But they should be given the awareness that these things are out there, because that's part of the power and the control of domestic violence. You need to come back to me because I control the money. You can't live without it. Our children need these things, and I'm the only one that can give it, so you got to come back to me. And I'll be a good boy for a while, and they are for the honeymoon phase, but inevitably it gets back to where it was. Okay? So it's out there, you got to find it, and you got to do it. Does the court system have it? No, we don't. I don't mean this negatively. Not our job in part. And we don't have the resources. Wish we did, but we don't. So what we need to do is make sure we partner up when we have these people in the domestic violence injunction or in a family law case to make sure that resources are available. We're doing better, but we got a lot of work to do. Yes, sir. You got a question? All right, somebody else? Yes.
Are there services provided for the children throughout this process while the adults are, throughout the duration of their cycle, which can be long, we know?
Yes.
Does the court provide any services for them?
Great question, and one of my ultimate frustrations in life. Dependency cases, by definition, where a child has been abused, neglected, or abandoned, our state has chosen to fund resources. Enough? Probably not. But there are services available that are pretty adequate, okay? For the other kind of family law cases, divorces, paternities, protective injunctions, no. So we have to, if there's money, it's easy within the family. As a family law judge, I can order that a child goes to counseling and order one or both parents to pay for it. I have that jurisdiction, I have that legal authority to do that, and often do. The frustration is when there's not the economic ability to do that. Now, Pinellas County, we've got some wonderful counselors, psychological types that will do it on sliding scales and at times do it pro bono. Then you go wherever you can to get into help, okay? Getting back to ACEs, the studies are off the charts. ACEs don't have to be a horrible effect for a child into their adult life. Don't have to be, but they often are. There's like, they put ACEs into 10 like categories. And you can take your own ACEs test. In my opinion, nobody gets a 0. We all got stuff. The higher the number of ACEs that any child has, the statistics are overwhelming. The likelihood that that child is going to get into drugs or alcohol later on in life. There's going to be unwanted premature pregnancies. There's going to be dropout from schools. There's going to be multiple marriages. They're going to be a victim or an abuser. The numbers are off the charts. So part of what we did in this conference was to try to hook up a partnership between the court system, the psychological community, and the lawyers that do family law. And the lawyers, most of them, not all, but most of them in our community that do family law have bought into this therapeutic justice. And they try to help too. So we do the best we can. Should there be more resources? Talk to Tallahassee. God, I can use them in my cases. Probably could have used them when I was a kid too, but too late for that now. Any other questions? All right, thank you all very much. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you all for being here. I'll be around for a while if anybody has any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Hellinger. Next up, we have somebody that if you go to school here, you know who she is. She doesn't need an introduction. First time you take a class with her, you're mesmerized by her ability to capture your attention, hold it, sometimes embarrass you, but mostly you get to learn from her. I first met Dr. Hudson in 2001. It was a long time ago, and yes, she's older than me. In 2001, when I returned to school to get my master's here at Springfield, so I am an alum from this school. I came here for a lot of reasons, but mostly because I worked full-time, and I knew I had to get an education because I got turned down for a job because I didn't have a master's degree. So I came back. Lo and behold, one of my first classes was with Dr. Hudson. She immediately captured my attention, held it, and here we are. Dr. Hudson is an international human capacity development consultant. I know that's a mouthful. She'll explain. She coaches and educates and assists organizations and academic institutions reach their goals. But let me just say this. You can always go read her bio. Let me say this. Dr. Hudson is a caring human being. She cares about her students. She cares about her neighbors. She cares about her family. And whenever anyone in that circle needs her help and her assistance, she doesn't hesitate to answer that call. I know because I called her 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and she's there. And I know other students have as well. So I'm not going to read her bio. I'm just going to simply say she is one heck of a person. She's one heck of an instructor. She continues to inspire and motivate everybody. She touches lives in a way that I can't explain. And you know what? She often says, I don't know what I do. But whatever she does it well. Because there's a whole slew of people who have been motivated and inspired by her. So without any further ado, let me introduce Dr. Janice Hudson.
I am older and considerably wiser. And part of that wisdom comes from the clear understanding that when the time is right, the right people show up to do the right thing. And we do it over and over and over again. And when we become tired, we rest, and we get up and we do it over and over and over again. Ending exploitation against women, domestic violence, human trafficking, pay inequity, among a variety of other social issues that touch our common humanity but show up more than necessary in the lives of women is what brings us to this space today, is what should bring us to a space of consideration every single day. Because I guarantee you that there's seldom a day that you turn your television on when you will not see that a woman or a woman child or children in general have been abused in ways that are very often unimaginable to those of us who think it may not touch our lives. The thing is, it touches every life, directly, indirectly, or simply because we show up in this form as human beings. There is not a single social issue that touches one of us that doesn't touch the other. It's taken us a little while to recognize that unless we value the women of our society, then we don't value our society. Because it is women who give birth to nations. It is women who hold the wisdom. And to say that does not devalue the wisdom that males hold. It is simply to say that in a society when there are kings and queens and doctors and attorneys and everything in between, and let's not forget educators, that women are the ones who labor and women are the ones who bring forth. And as such, we should hold us sacred. As such, we should find ways to recognize that within each of us, male or female, lives a mother, lives a woman at whose breast we may have nursed, a woman in whose belly we lived for 9 months, or prematurely if we came early, because we were so excited to be here. So I say that with the understanding that when we stand in solidarity to end violence against women, we're not saying that we don't value the many contributions that men bring to the table. We're saying that yes, but we also know that within our society, that when men dare to stand in solidarity, we do things to them. So it takes courage. For the young males who are here today, I commend you. For the little ones who are male and daring to sit with their sisters and their moms and their dads, we thank you for having the courage to be here. We know that this is grown-up stuff when we're chatting, and yet you sit still and you sit with us. So I want to have a conversation with you outside of what the court systems are doing, outside of what our social institutions are doing, outside of what our vendors are doing who provide services to women in the community who have been victimized. I want to have a one-on-one, a serious conversation about what it means to victimize women. I want us to recognize that while we have been sitting here now for perhaps a bit over an hour, that there are women who have died, there are women who have been stabbed, there have been women who are currently in an emergency room. And then, let me add this, is there anyone here who took I-4 to be here today? There is a very strong possibility that the car next to you or the trailer next to you might have been carrying women who were about to be bought or sold. That is what exploitation of women looks like. It's in the car right next to you. It's in the supermarket with the person putting the cart right next to you, putting groceries in the cart. It might be somebody who serves you at your favorite restaurant. Please let's not ever think that it is so tightly concealed. What has happened, unfortunately, is that we've normalized it so we don't see that it exists behind and in front of the broken faces, the broken bodies, that I can smile and still be a victim of violence or exploitation. So I thank you for being here because this is an important conversation. I want to talk a little bit about why we think globally but act locally. It is important to stand right where we are and make a difference. Sometimes we can choose where we fight. Sometimes we can choose where we stand in solidarity. But most often, we wake up in our own skins on any given day and know that right where we stand at that very moment is a time and space that can make a difference. We must continue to think globally because it doesn't just happen here. When rape becomes a weapon of war, it devastates countries. It devastates women that we cannot begin to count because chances are we will never have accurate measures. For the many women and the many cases who show up in our court system, we know, those of us who do the work, that there are many, many cases that never get reported, that no one ever talks about. We know that there are women this coming weekend, actually this weekend, not even next weekend. This weekend we're celebrating Valentine's Day. Tuesday's Valentine's Day, and most people will celebrate over the weekend. And there are women who you may see in a restaurant, beautifully dressed and smiling. She may even have roses. She may even have diamonds. She may have been given beautiful gifts. And at the end of the day, at the end of the dinner, at the end of the party, at the end of the dance, the pain begins. And so those of us who stand understand that without a doubt, the exploitation of women continues. We know that here in the United States, we have the Violence Against Women Act of 1994, I believe, and we reauthorized in 2013. And that is a good thing. Much as the judge said, we've made many, many wonderful strides. And we're grateful for that because it suggests that as a society we are growing. But here we are, having having fought many a battle and taken many a stand, we now must again raise our voice in solidarity, because the programs that Judge Helen just spoke of may lose funding, because one of the things that may be on the chopping block is funds that will go to the programs that are funded by the Violence Against Women's Reauthorization Act. So I invite you to the table with the knowledge that there is no time to rest, that the need and the call is as loud and as urgent as it has ever been. One of the things we know as a fact is that when women return to further their education, if there is the potential for violence within the home, it tends to escalate. Because to dare to be educated, when we didn't once educate women, but to dare to be educated might suggest that you find your voice. And part of the cycle of violence against women is to keep women silent. And so we stand here for women who have not yet found their voices. We stand in solidarity with women who want to speak, and when they open their mouths, nothing comes. We stand for those of us because we know the work, we know the pain. I consider myself a keeper of stories. It is not a title or a job or position I asked for. In fact, I kind of really wish I didn't have it. But for whatever the reason, I hear women's stories. When I talk to women and do issues of development, before we can get to the growth, we must move through the pain. And those are the stories that I get gifted with. I hear stories of a little girl who would dare to dream to be a doctor. Until one night, when no one else was around, her father came into her bedroom and he said to her, "Honey, don't you love me? I'm your daddy." And she said, as all little girls are prone to do, "Yes, Daddy, I love you. I love you, Daddy, I love you." And so he says, "Sit on my knee." It would seem to me that that's a normal thing to do. Until sitting on my knee becomes inappropriate touching. Until sitting on my knee becomes digital penetration. Until sitting on my daddy's knee becomes rape. I hear those stories. I hear stories of women who are powerful in their professional lives, women who are attorneys and judges and leaders in the community, whose public faces are vibrant and full of wonder. And on the journey home, the telephone calls start. So when you're coming home, how far away are you? Why didn't you call me? Didn't you get a break? You know you're supposed to call me, why haven't you called? And these very powerful women who in the day-to-day of their lives touch the world in positive ways begin to crumble. And that is the story that I get to hold. I'm a holder of stories because women bleed tears and women bleed blood. And the tears linger long after the stitches are taken out. The tears linger long after the uterus no longer holds the fetus that was kicked from it by a man who claimed to love her, by a man who claimed to protect her. But let us not assume that violence happens only in the heterosexual community. Violence against violence, against violence against women. Women perpetrate violence against women because if we live in an oppressive world, we learn well how to be sub-oppressors. And so we think globally and we act locally because we recognize that as a single individual, as small groups of people, we cannot change the world, but we can change this one tile on which we stand. Imagine if we each changed the tile on which we stand, then it stands to reason we could really rock this. We could really bring about change that says, I am here, I am to be recognized, but more importantly, I will not be silent. It is the silence that kills. It's when I don't stand for you, when you don't stand for me, that we all die. If I die, you die. If I bleed, you bleed. So we talk about social justice, and we think that social justice is this really, really big thing that I have to plan for, and I have to call all my friends, and I have to really make this powerful statement. Let me say this. I invite you to stand right where you are and see the world with new eyes. I dare you to not see. I dare you to not see, because it is all around us. And the way we begin to make a difference is because we dare to say to ourselves, now, where have I been all my life that I didn't see this? How is it I did not recognize this? It is suddenly because I am so acutely aware that my world is beautiful, but within that beauty are pockets of such abject horror that affect women's lives across the world and right here at home. So since we're not going to go flying off and change the world, the most we can do is stand in solidarity. The most that we can do, it is our human responsibility. It is the reason we walk. It is the rent we pay for being here. It is why we show up. It is why we show up when we're not quite sure what we need to do. It is the day we show up and say to a woman, I know you're scared, so I will walk with you. Perhaps the next story I get to hold will be a story of a woman who found an ally, a male ally, a female ally, it matters not, just an ally, who says, I got you. Let me take your hand. Let me walk with you. The judge is right. We do need advocates. We do need allies. We do need for people to stand. But more importantly, we need to understand that unless we strengthen women to own their own voices, that they will not come to court, that they will not testify, that they will take their testimony back, and they will continue to smile and say, I'm fine, I'm fine. I hold stories for many women who tell me they're fine. I have gotten off the phone late one evening with a young woman who said she was fine. She assured me she was fine, and I believed her, and got a call around 2 in the morning that she was in the emergency room because she had slit her wrist because she could not be raped one more time. Those stories need to change, and we are the ones who help to write new stories. We are the ones who say to women, let me be your voice until you find yours. Let me hold you up until you remember that you were born to fly. We are the ones who say playing small doesn't work, that you must stand in your grandness of who you are and know without a doubt that you have a contribution to make to this world. I am extremely, extremely, extremely fortunate to teach in this institution because over the years I have watched people come in as students and leave as leaders in their community. I have worked with women in our classrooms who have been quiet, who found their voices and now speak powerfully. I am fortunate because every day I get to see stories rewrite themselves over and over and over again. That is the payoff. So there is no money. Well, we really need to be standing for money now because there is no way that programs that support women should be defunded. To do that is to slice open the essence of who we are as a society and let the blood of who we are and who we are becoming drain. And we will not allow that. We will continue to stand. We will continue to recognize this as a global social issue. But more importantly, we will act right here at home in the smallest possible ways we can and the grandest ways that we can. We will sign petitions. We will raise our voices. We will talk to each other. We will bring it to the forefront over and over and over again. Because as long as violence continues, we stand. As long as there's a question about whether or not a woman should be paid equal pay for equal work, we stand. As long as there are external forces interfering in a woman's right to choose what happens in her life and with her body, we will stand. We will continue to stand. We will continue to find allies. But more importantly, we will continue to lift our voices. Because make no mistake, a solitary voice can be as powerful as an orchestra. And we can make music to the point that people everywhere will hear us. It's already begun to happen. We're 1 billion rising and rising strong. The theme of this year's event is Rise, Disrupt, and Connect. We rise because women who have been victimized have been down too long. We disrupt because we disrupt the status quo. Because unless we do but judge, we do it within the constraints of civil society. We don't necessarily break the rules, but we do disrupt because if we don't disrupt, the status quo continues. We don't want just social change, we want social transformation, because when we change, we can always change back. We see it happening right before our eyes. We want a change that is sustainable and lasting. And last but not least, we connect. We connect here at home with like-minded people who are courageous enough and brave enough to say, well, I'm not so sure what she wants me to do, but I'm going anyway. I have seen my students grace me with trust and offer to read and to share their experiences not only in class, but at this event every year. And in so doing, I am motivated and I am inspired. My colleague Sandy says that I am motivating and inspiring. All I really do is show up. But yeah, I'm that too. But what I do is show up. And I show up to remind us all that that is the one thing we can do. Because sometimes when we show up, we give other people permission to show up as well. And that is what we want. We want to keep showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up. And when we get told to sit down and shut up, we show up again. And we will continue to stand, and we will stand in solidarity, because the only way sustainable change happens is because good people just like us are courageous enough to stand. Over here to my right, this is my right, yes, this is my right. Over here to my right, we've laid out a symbolic chair, because there are many women, as I said earlier, who would have wanted to be here. We don't want to exclude them from this discourse because their voices are silent. And so we hold a space for them. And I invite you to hold a space for just a minute for someone who you know whose life might have been touched directly or indirectly by violence. And if we could, for a moment, just be silent and be quiet and touch that place within our heart where love lives, where we cherish the essence of who we are, and in that space, be mindful of the women that we know or don't know, who that chair represents, or the chair next to you represents. Be mindful of her, because she too could have been here and has left us only her memory as an echo. And as that echo resounds, it reminds us that we cannot sit down, that we must rise, we must disrupt, and we must connect. Because if we don't, who will? If we don't, who will? If we don't, who will? We don't want our entire day to be simply concerned with the statistics and the pain of what it means to be victimized. And so one of the things that we do every year is to engage as a part of our discussion, celebration. Because we know that when women find the purpose and the need to celebrate their own lives, they are more courageous then to end up in our courtrooms. And so our theme of Rising is because we use dance as a medium of social change, as a medium of liberation, as a medium to stand in solidarity. 1 billion rises. 1 billion rising across the world. On February 14th, there will be feet stamping everywhere of women who dare to rise and disrupt and connect. And the men who love them and stand with them, who they have given birth to, who they have nurtured, who they have married, who they're sisters to, who they're aunties to, and men will rise as well. When we say 1 billion rising, we say that we stand together. We stand as equals. We stand in solidarity. I remind you to think big, but work on your little tile on which you stand. Thank you.
Dr. Hudson said. 3 years ago, actually today, we had maybe, maybe 4 or 5 men in the audience. And I was a little dismayed because my feelings and my thoughts and the way I walk is a little bit different than most. Today, if you look around, you'll see that there's quite a few men. And that's fantastic. And that's great. And I thank you all for coming out. I don't agree with Dr. Hudson.
You don't?
I don't.
Yeah.
I know I'll get an F. However, in supporting women, in standing with women, I think is a normal way. It's a normal way for me. Because I had a mother, a wife, daughters, and I've stood with them, beside them. And so what I was taught, I was raised by a single mom, and maybe that's why my perspective is a little bit different. So I took on a different attitude. I didn't feel like I had to prove anything as a man, because every time I tried, my mom would just bring it down a little bit. But what she did teach me was how to walk next to a woman, how to respect her, how to be there for her. And so when I had my children, that's exactly what I did. That's what I taught them. I taught my sons that, and I taught my daughters that no matter what anyone says, that they can do and be whoever they want to be, and that they didn't have to fear because I was always there. And that's what I've tried to do. I did have a story, but in the interest of time, I'm going to introduce the men who are standing as allies. One of them is a co-worker. His name is Alston Phillips. I was going to read his bio, but again, I'm not going to do that because I think what he has to say is going to speak for itself. He's a co-worker, and he has a lot of experience. As a matter of fact, he was guardian ad litem, if I'm not mistaken, at some point. So, and he'll explain that a little bit. So, ladies and gentlemen, Alston Phillips.
Well, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here. When Carlos invited me and told me, hey, I'd like for you to come out and speak at this event, I felt really honored to do that. My experience as an ally really began about 14 years ago when I began my master's in social work program. And for the first time, I really saw what it was like, kind of like being a minority. In my class, I was, at most time, I was the only male in a class of about 20 students, the only male in a master's program, which I found to be kind of unusual, but they said that most men did not enter into the social work field, and I found that kind of hard to believe, and I just asked questions, talked to my advisors, talked to other professors, and they said that for whatever reason, they tried to recruit males, and they just couldn't get them because they said it goes to your heart, a lot of emotion, and for some of them, some really bad experiences. And I can kind of understand that. As a young man, just think about where you're sitting right now. You can see right in front of you, sitting in the back seat of a car of a relative, and to see a relative abuse someone that they proclaim that they love. So just think about where you're sitting, and you can see that from the back seat. And then when it's all said and done, they apologize, they make up, and then it happens again. I saw that several times. It was disturbing to me. And when I talked to my father about it, he said that that's not how men should behave. And he explained to me a lot of things that I finally understood and I took to heart. So after my military career, I entered that program, and I really started to see how men could actually be more allies than enemies. It wasn't until I took my first job with the Department of Veterans Affairs as a readjustment counselor working with returning Iraqi and Afghanistan vets, combat veterans. I'm a combat veteran myself, but really to understand what they were going through, and then how the traumatic experiences that they had in a combat zone affected them and their relationship with their spouses and their loved ones. For a lot of them, it was that power and control. They gave up that power and that control when they left, and they came back, and their spouses had that power and control as they saw it. And trying to reclaim or regain that power, there was a struggle. And as the male or the head of household, they figured, well, if you're not going to give it up voluntarily, then I'm going to beat it out of you. Not to say that it was right, but that's, for a lot of them, that's what they explained to me. They lost all that power and all that control, and they had to find a way of regaining that control and that power in the house. Not like I said, that's not exactly how they felt per se, but that's how they explained it to me. Trying to connect with another male and really just letting your emotions out wasn't very easy. So, trying to figure out what can I do and how can I help other males that may have been victims or witnessed a victim some type of victimization, abuse, so that they can prevent it from happening. One, identify it for the most part, and then teach other males, especially their young children, their sons, their nephews, friends, so that it doesn't continue that cycle of violence. It's interesting from a male's perspective that when you try to help a female sometimes, or a woman, that they don't want that help, or they sometimes will refuse to help. And as simple as it may seem to us, it's like, okay, I'm trying to help you, why wouldn't you let me help you? You have to understand from their perspective, a lot of times it's somebody that looks like me. It doesn't have to be the same color, but it happened to be the same gender that victimized them. And that was hard for me to understand. I'm trying to help you and you won't let me help you. Why? Why? I'm not the one that victimized you. I'm on your side. Why would you let me help you? And they didn't see the difference between me and the other male. And that bled into the relationships with other males, because a male victimized me, you're a male. If I go into a relationship with you, the same thing is going to happen. So for a lot of them, they would disconnect, or anytime they get the relationship starts getting more serious and more serious, then they'll back off. Sometimes they would get into a relationship, or even they would have like flirtatious relationship, and when the males started getting too serious or aggressive, then they back off. So for some males, they would call them names, they'll make fun of them, they would try to take advantage of them, and for some of them, take advantage of me using some type of drugs, alcohol, or that power to actually take advantage of them. So if they couldn't do it voluntarily, then they would take it by some type of force. And that's not right. You know, if a woman says no, it's no, period. And I just think of, if it's my sister, my mother, my aunt, my friend, my wife that I said that I love and care for, why would I have to do that? Why would I have to abuse them physically, emotionally, sexually? It's not fair to them. You know, you're talking about somebody's dignity and respect. Would you like somebody to do the same thing to you? When I met my first male victim from a physical abuse, and talking to him, he was victimized and then he understood. So that was very interesting conversation coming from another male that had been through that situation. And he said, you know what? I'm starting to realize what women in my family have been subjected to for over 15 years, now that it happened to me as a male. But before, it was okay. As a male, you know, we can take advantage of women and do whatever we wanted to, because we were the males, we were the head of households. And he realized that that stinking thinking was actually wrong, and wanted to actually change his thought process, and started to help the males in his family to actually stop violating the women that they said that they love. It took some time, you know, he changed, and then he started influence and became into active change for the men in his family. So I stand in front of you today to say that, you know, men can be allies. And sometimes for a male, we need to find another approach to helping females, to helping women. Sometimes it doesn't have to be something that you're doing right then and there. Sometimes just listening. And I find a lot that just listening is more than enough sometimes. Just being present is more than enough sometimes. Offering to help is more than enough sometimes. And finding some type of resource, or finding someone else that they can go to, that they can trust, is actually more than enough sometimes. I was a family advocacy program manager in charge of sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, and neglect in an area in Germany that's the size of Tampa. for a military community. And we're talking about Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and Department of Defense civilians. So we're talking all military plus civilians and their family members. And I saw enough of all of those categories that I just explained to you. So having over 1,200 cases to go before a military court, investigation, and sometimes after it's been adjudicated, we had to separate children from their parents and spouses from the other spouses. There was a good question that was asked about what funding and what type of resources available to prevent that abuse from reoccurring. Yes, it's okay to say, well, hey, just get away, don't go back. But if you don't provide some type of resource, some stability, it's hard for a victim to just get up and go. When the spouse, especially overseas, have your passport, have the passport for the children, is the primary owner of the account when they take the money out, when they take the passports away. So again, that power and control. But the one good thing about our program is that we have funding set aside for the children and the spouses of, the abusers. So if necessary, we can put them in safe houses. We had houses and apartments throughout the military community that we can, put these victims until we can either get them the help that they need, including the offender, or they decide on a place that they would like to go to, return to here in the United States, and we can pay for up to 1 year's rent for apartment or housing, provide them with the passport, we expedite the passports within a week. They can have their passports, so if the spouse has destroyed or taken the passport, we can do that. We make sure they get their passports, we make sure that they have money on a monthly basis so that if they don't have a job, at least they have the money to help pay for utilities, to pay for food, to pay for a car, anything like that. So we do give them an opportunity so that they can, step out and take that chance so that they can start their lives over again. We don't like to separate, and we didn't like to separate the children from the parents, and we didn't like to, break up the families. Sometimes it was necessary. Like I said, you do what you have to do to protect children and spouses from abuse. I was very proud of that. Our caseload reduced, especially when we started getting the word out. The worst cases for me were the ones where the child was severely injured or it ended in death, and the spouse as well. There was one case that sticks with me to this day, and this is why I said that for as long as I have strength in my body, I will continue to be an advocate, to be an ally, and speak out against the violence. Twins, 6 months old, and a spouse killed in less than 24 hours. The 2 children were discharged from the hospital. There was domestic violence in the home. The spouse was trying to take the kids out of the home, and that husband, both children, after the investigation was concluded, their skulls, they had severe skull fractures and broken ribs. The spouse was stabbed 18 times in the back, trying to cover the kids as she was holding on to the handle of the door trying to exit. It's one of the worst cases in my life. The pictures and going through the trial of the gentleman, I don't call him, I say gentleman, but he wasn't. And what was his excuse was she was trying to take the kids away from him. And he just couldn't allow that to happen. There is no excuse ever to physically, emotionally abuse, again, someone that you said that you love and cared for. So again, as long as I have strength in my body, I will continue to be an advocate and an ally for women and children who have been sexually, physically, emotionally abused. So That's basically, my story. And I continued that when I returned as a guardian ad litem, working for the Fifth Circuit Court and trying to prevent other children in our community from being abused physically, emotionally, and sexually. And I volunteer. It's a great program. We're always in need of people. If you're interested, I recommend that you want to contribute and give back. That is definitely one way to give back. Okay? So again, thanks for the invitation, Carlos. And I'm here if any of you have any questions for me. Thank you.
Great story. Thank you, Alston, and thank you for taking the time. Next up is Raul Lorenzo. He is the assistant coordinator for Springfield College, and he's an ally. So,
thank you, Carlos. So, a few weeks back, Carlos approached me and said, "Hey, I'm trying to put a group of men to talk about what it means to be an ally." And it's funny because Carlos doesn't know me, he knows me, but he doesn't know my background, my history, and my past. And I found it interesting that he would ask me to speak on this particular subject and topic because it is a topic that is very near and dear to me. My mom was battered by a boyfriend when I was very young. I must have been in maybe first or second grade, so it was like maybe 7 years old. And it was a period in our lives that was filled with fear and anger and frustration, certainly for my brother and I, primarily because we knew it was wrong. We knew it shouldn't happen, but we also felt very powerless. We were small, he was bigger, he was stronger. We certainly didn't keep our mouths shut. We were very vocal when we would be woken up at night and we would advocate for our mom, but at the same time, in her effort to protect us, she would try to put us aside. I must say that it was at a very young age, shortly after she actually had the fortitude and the strength to get out of that relationship, and I commend her tremendously for doing that she had the presence of mind not just to protect herself, but certainly to protect her children and to move on from that relationship. But it was at that very young age that I made a decision in my life that I would never, ever put myself in a situation where I would allow such things to happen, and that I would certainly do everything that was within my power, to make sure that I was never a perpetrator, and that if I ever saw someone being a victim, that I would do everything within my power to help them. She was able to get out of that relationship with the help of some individuals. And I remember that evening very clearly, very vividly, being woken up in the middle of the night, asked to pack a bag because we were leaving, and leaving everything behind. It was at the same, it was very unsettling, but at the same time it was exciting because we knew it was a positive thing. It was time to move on. And women are forced to make such decisions often. And it's wonderful when they do, because obviously they're being proactive about getting that relationship, but they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to. If more men took it upon themselves, to essentially make the decision that they would never, ever raise their voice, raise their hand, or in any way be physical towards a female, then children wouldn't be placed in those circumstances, and obviously women wouldn't either. I say this, or I tell you this story because, in my opinion, men have tremendous power in this situation. They have the ability to, in essence, end domestic violence. Because we can make, as men, we can make that decision that it ends, it stops. We will never do it. We will never be the perpetrator. We will never allow it to happen. It helps by the way that we speak to women, by our actions towards women, and also how we treat them and how we elevate them, you know, to a different status. As I was growing up as a young man, I continued to, in essence, be very active, if you will, in helping myself to grow and understand the power that I had as a male and the responsibility that I had as a male, not just towards my mom, but to my female friends. And now as a father of a young woman who just turned 10 years old, to be that example, to be that father figure, that entity in her life that will demonstrate and show to her how a real man behaves and treats a woman and speaks to a woman. I am always conscious about the words that I use, how I speak, my body language. It's all very important. Children are very perceptive. I remember back when I was her age, observing it and knowing what it meant and how it made others feel. In college, I took courses on masculinity. Why? Because as a Hispanic male, there are certain cultural forces that I knew and understood would influence the way that I thought, behaved, and interacted with women. So I wanted to redefine my definition, my understanding of what it meant to be a man and what masculinity meant to me. So I was proactive about educating myself and reading books and understanding and redefining what it meant to me. My mother's an incredibly strong woman, very intelligent. She was then too, but she found herself in a relationship that was obviously not what she wanted or intended. It happened. And you don't have to be weak or, you know, in any way subversive to actually fall into that trap, into that position. And I use that as an example often, you know, because she is incredibly intelligent. She's very proactive, she's very vocal, she's incredibly articulate, and yet she still found herself in that position. And she needed help to get out. She didn't necessarily understand or have the resources to be able to get out on her own. And so as allies, we could often find ways that we can help those that need help, to be active and be vigilant and look for the signs so that we can help and aid, or at the very least guide those individuals towards the help that they need, and seek the shelter that they need and protect them. I would not be standing today if it wasn't for her strength back then. Obviously, it could have turned out to be much, much worse. God forbid that it would turn out similar to the story that Mr. Phillips actually just shared. Okay, that was very real then. It was very real for me then as well. I understood this is not a good situation. I'm going to feel safe. And it was her strength. It was her intelligence. It was her fortitude and understanding that she needed to get out. And I am indebted to her. And I am the man that I am today because of her, because of the strength that she demonstrated then. And I never lost sight of that. Never lost sight of that. So I encourage the men here today, you don't have to go to a traumatic experience like I did in order to choose to be an ally. But in any situation that you encounter, just like the judge's son, you'll be presented possibly with an opportunity to be that ally. And it's our responsibility to step up to that challenge and take on that responsibility at that moment. And I just want to read this quote. It's in the back of the program, and I think it's completely appropriate. The people who could do most to improve the situation of so many women and children are, in fact, men. It is in our hands to stop violence against women. And so we as men need to take on that responsibility. We need to take on that charge. We need to understand that it is within our power to transform, as Dr. Hudson suggested, not just change, but to transform the way that we view women, interact with women, and value women every single day. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul.
And their words on their understanding of domestic violence, human trafficking. But I do want to say this. It is so important for us to have not just adults, but young people who understand the value of their own voice. And our very first reader is the daughter of one of our students. So come forward, please. If we could have your attention, please.
Hi. 1 in 6 of the 18,500 runaways exported to the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children in 2016 were likely sex trafficking victims. 86% of these likely sex trafficking victims were in the care of social services.
Thank you. And her mom?
I wasn't created to be your possession. I am an honored individual, surrounded by His glory. Didn't you know that I was created by the Most High? Destined to lead, make a difference, and be astonishing. Who are you to dictate what my purpose in life should be? I am not your property. I am a woman. It's my right to an education, to not be passed around as currency. I am not a symbol of your dominance. I am a woman. You cannot mutilate my body for tradition. I choose what I want with my body. I am not a science experiment. I am not invisible. I am a daughter of the Most High, and I am somebody.
Fact, more than 75% of all female victims were raped or sexually assaulted before the age of 25.
Myth. Victims of human trafficking will immediately ask for help or assistance and will self-identify as a victim of. Victims of human trafficking often do not immediately seek help or self-identify as victims of a crime due to a variety of factors, including lack of trust, self-blame, or specific instructions by the traffickers regarding how to behave when talking to law enforcement or social services. It is important to avoid making snap judgments about who is or who is not a trafficking victim based on first encounters. Trust often takes time to develop. Continued trust building and patient interviewing is often required to get to the whole story and uncover the full experience of what a victim has gone through.
Most people think only of physical abuse when they consider domestic violence. Yet, financial abuse happens in 98% of all cases of domestic violence. The number one reason domestic violence survivors stay, leave, or return to an abusive relationship is that they do not have the financial resources to break free.
Fact, women living with HIV and AIDS are often victimized once disclosing their status to their partner. They are often raped, killed, or sometimes brutally beaten. As an advocate for women living with HIV and AIDS, we're there to stand for them and by them to make sure that this doesn't happen.
Domestic violence victims face a high rate of aggression, sleep disorder, anxiety, flashbacks, and other mental distress. Domestic violence contributes to poor health for many survivors, including chronic conditions such as heart disease or gastrin disorders. Most women brought to the emergency room due to domestic violence were socially isolated and had very social financial services.
The cycle of human trafficking. This wet, musty storage container, night after night. I wonder if mother is looking for me, night after night. I just want to go home. I want to be free. I can hear the other girls' tears hit the ground like a ton of bricks. Even though I feel alone, I'm not. It's over 20 of us waiting for the next call. Last night was long. I had over 10 dates. So it's like I died 10 times. The door opened and the container grew still and fear filled the air. Delicious, he called out. I guess it's my turn again. Boom! The door was kicked in. Freedom, I thought to myself. No, this seems too good to be true. Police, don't move. My heart is pounding 1,000,000 miles an hour. Daddy's gonna kill me. I will surely die, I thought to myself. Should I tell the officer that Daddy's making me do this? The more and more the officer drove, the more bolder I became. Excuse me, officer. Shut up, whore! Sitting in another cage, the cage door opened. Whore, let's go. You've been bailed out. Me? I thought to myself. Back into the arms of Daddy, I go.
Human trafficking as millions of women and girls in modern day slavery. Women and girls represent 55% of the estimated 20.9 million. Billions of forced labor worldwide, and 90% of them estimate 4.5 million forced into sexual exploitation. International Labor Organization 2012.
According to the Risk Behavior Surveillance Survey, a national survey of high school students, 8.0 of students have been forced to have sexual intercourse when they did not want to. 11.8% female students were significantly more likely than male students at 4.5% to have been forced to have sexual intercourse. Overall, Black students were significantly more likely than white students, 15.2%, to have been forced to have sexual intercourse. This is noted by the Center for Disease Control, 2012.
Fact: a female rape or sexual assault victims in 2010, 25% were assaulted by a stranger, 48% by friends or acquaintances, and 17% was intimate partners.
February is Teen Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The highest rate of victimization for abuse and sexual assault occurs between the ages of 16 and 24. Youth need support and guidance to establish healthy dating relationships. They need to be reminded that love has many definitions, but abuse isn't one of them.
Myth: foreign national trafficking victims are always abducted
or here in this country illegally. Reality, not all foreign national victims are undocumented. Foreign national trafficked persons can be in the United States through either legal or illegal means. Although some foreign national victims are undocumented, a significant percentage may have legitimate visas for various purposes.
Amid this, human trafficking is essentially a crime that must involve some form of travel, transportation, or movement across state or national borders. The reality is, trafficking does not require transportation. Although transportation may be involved as a control mechanism to keep victims in unfamiliar places, it is not a required element of the trafficking definition. Human trafficking is not synonymous with forced migration or smuggling, which involve border crossings.
I am a moving mountain. I am expansive energy. I have thunder in my voice and fire in my breath. My laugh is lightning. My eyes are laser beam. My hair is lion's mane, and my wisdom is salty, crashing waves. I am large, bigness. I contain multitudes. I am unafraid of evoking reactions, truth, and emotions in others. I am unafraid of my power to shift the energy of a room. And I will no longer murder myself. No longer will I apologize for occupying space that is rightfully mine. I will not shrink. I will stand tall and big and wide. I will rejoice in my capacity because I belong here. And you, so do you. You all belong here too.
What do you see when you look at me? Can you see the pain that once lived inside of me? Abused, battered, and beaten. I live in hell, threatening to take every piece of me. Looking in the mirror, hating to see the side of me. Scars so deep, I'm unable to recognize who I used to be. Tired of being miserable, and I decided to break free. No more pain, no more chains. You will never be the death of me. Today I stand tall, with all my bruises, scars, and downfalls. Yet I still have evolved. Standing here with all of you, giving my testimony, I have been delivered and set free. You see, once you take a stand and vow to be the best you that you can be, your abuser's power over you slips away. The strength you need is right there inside of you. Believe in yourself, and when you're feeling weak, you begin to pray. Pray for your abuser too. He needs it anyway. Be able to forgive so that you can move on. You don't have to hate or become bitter and live with vengeance. Remember, it is his incompetence that demanded dominance. Have confidence in who God created you to be. Beautiful woman, beautifully, lovely. Know your own strength and capabilities. Claim your greater. Say goodbye to your pain. But remember what once was, because your story, your hurt and pain will become your testimony. It will deliver you and help you to help others who's in pain. As we all come together and stand together and start healing one another as we break chains.
A significant number of college women are victims of violence and abuse. 43% of dating college women report experiencing some violence and abusive dating behaviors, including physical, sexual, tech, verbal, or controlling abuse. Over 1 in 5 college women, 22% 52% report actual physical abuse, sexual abuse, or threats of physical abuse. 52% of college women report knowing a friend who has experienced violence and abuse dating behaviors, including physical, sexual, tech, or verbal, or controlling abuse.
Well, let's put our hands together for the presenters, for Dr. Hudson, and everyone that has taken out their time to address these issues. Let's give them all a round of applause. Very important issue. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to do what you're going to do, but if you cannot see, I would recommend you turn your chair around, do a semicircle, whatever it is you have to do to be able to observe the dancers and the drummers and the other dancers as they come out, okay? All right, put your hands together for Dunu Dole first performing Break the Chains.
I'm not
promoting diversity, and developing life skills through cultural and performing arts. And in our 25 years of existence, we now have youngsters that are adults that perform all around the world, receiving college scholarships to some of the most prestigious universities, Harvard, Juilliard, Boston Conservatory of Music. They're all over. They're on Broadway, they're in films, they're doing all kinds of incredible things, and they're not all performers. Many are physicians and pharmacists. We have a pharmacist, a doctor of pharmacy, and you would wish, oh, she's changed. She was one of the answers. And so we use the arts as a way to inspire and encourage our children, male and female, because it's one thing to work with the young ladies, but we have to work with the men as well. Because you make the young ladies all wonderful, and then what are they going to go home to? What do I have to deal with? So we have to work with both genders and help them to understand the importance of having pride in yourself and being able to express yourself through your artistry, through your words, through your thoughts, through your visions. At work, there's all kinds of ways to express yourself, and most importantly, I heard several important things today. One of them is having the courage to stand up and speak up and indicate this is wrong. They say evil flourishes when good people stand back and do nothing. So we have to make sure, yes, that deserves a round of applause. Not continue to allow things to happen, especially with these children. In the 45 years that I've been doing this for children in the community, I can tell you some horrific stories that I won't even go into. But we are our brothers and sisters' keepers. We have to reach out. We have to get beyond a lot of our biases and the darkness that permeates the world and look at each other as human beings, as we are all brothers and sisters. So today we want to do a celebratory dance for this event, to culminate this event. And this is a dance called Manjani, Hoop Manjani, and it comes in from the West African region. These youngsters have to learn the history, the attire. There's so much that they have to learn while they are participating in this, and they have to couple that with their academics and how they conduct themselves socially, how they treat their parents, their neighbors, and their friends. So it's
connect, this is it. Find your own way in your own voice to make a difference. And as we leave today, we have our heartfelt gratitude for showing up, for having the courage to show up, and daring to be brave. To our Springfield students, faculty, Dr. Brown, and dear friend and colleague, Sandy, we thank you. And we leave you with this. The resonance of the drum in many indigenous cultures speaks to our very lifeblood, our life force, and the beat of our hearts. So I'm going to ask you to stand with us as we get ready to wrap our day. And in the silence that it is your own magnificence, find a way to commit yourself to making a difference. And the beating of the drum as the beating of our hearts in our own distinct, unique, and brilliant way. We rise in solidarity